Imagine, for a moment, a small garage in California. The year is 1976. Inside, two young men are working with cheap parts, broken tools, and an impossible dream. One of them has long hair, no shoes, and almost no money. He has been kicked out of college. He has worked at a fruit farm. He has traveled across India searching for meaning. His name is Steve Jobs. In just a few decades, this barefoot young man will change the world. He will help create the personal computer. He will reinvent music. He will transform the phone in your pocket, the movies you watch, the way you read, the way you shop, the way you live. But before all of that, he was just a confused, angry, brilliant boy, trying to figure out who he was. Today, we are going to walk through his journey, slowly and carefully. Not the polished version on movie posters, the real one, the painful one, the inspiring one. And while we walk, you will also be practicing English. So don't worry about every single word. Let the story carry you. Listen to the rhythm. Feel the meaning. Each time you return to this story, your understanding will grow stronger. So get comfortable, slow your breathing, and let's begin. Our story begins in San Francisco, in the year 1955. A young, unmarried woman gave birth to a baby boy. She was not ready to raise a child. She wanted him to have a better life. So, with a heavy heart, she chose to give him up for adoption. There was one condition. She wanted the baby's adoptive parents to be college educated. She believed that education was the key to a good future. But life rarely follows our plans. The first family who agreed to adopt the baby changed their minds at the last moment. So another couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, took the baby instead. They were warm, kind, and hard-working, but neither of them had finished college. The baby's biological mother was upset. She refused to sign the papers. Only after Paul and Clara promised they would one day send the boy to university did she finally agree. They named him Stephen Paul Jobs. This story of his birth would shape him deeply. For his entire life, Steve felt the weight of being adopted. He felt special. He felt chosen. But sometimes, he also felt abandoned. These two feelings would push him toward greatness, and also toward great loneliness. Paul Jobs was a mechanic. He worked with his hands. He fixed cars. He restored old engines. And from a very young age, he showed Steve something important. Quality matters, even in the parts no one sees. When Paul built a fence around their house, he made sure the back of the fence, the side facing nobody, was just as beautiful as the front. He told young Steve, "A good craftsman cares even about the parts hidden from view." This simple idea stayed with Steve forever. Many years later, when Apple engineers designed circuit boards inside computers, Steve insisted that even the inside, where no customer would ever look, must be beautiful. The engineers complained. They thought it was silly. But Steve never let go of his father's lesson. Quality is not about what people see. Quality is about who you are when no one is watching. Steve grew up in a part of California that would soon become famous. People would later call it Silicon Valley. But in the late 1960s, it was simply a quiet area filled with engineers, technicians, and curious young men. The neighbors fixed radios. They built electronics in their garages. They talked about transistors at dinner. Steve was surrounded by this culture. It became his playground. Around age 12, something interesting happened. Steve needed a part for a school project. He picked up the phone and called Bill Hewlett. Yes, the same Bill Hewlett, co-founder of the famous Hewlett-Packard Company. Steve found his phone number in the phone book. Now, most 12-year-olds would never dare do this, but Steve did. He politely asked Bill Hewlett for help. Bill laughed. He liked the boy's confidence. He gave him the part. And he also gave him something more valuable, a summer job at HP. This was the moment young Steve learned a powerful truth. The world will often help you if you have the courage to ask. But Steve was not a normal student. He often disagreed with teachers. He skipped homework. He liked to argue. He was smart, but rebellious. His parents were worried. They tried to support him. They moved to a better school district just so he could attend a stronger high school. They saved money for years. They sacrificed comfort. All for him. It was during high school that Steve met someone who would change his life completely. His name was Steve Wozniak. Wozniak, often called Woz, was a few years older than Steve. He was a quiet, gentle, brilliant engineer. He loved building electronics. He could design things that other engineers thought impossible. When the two Steves met, they became close friends. Woz was the genius engineer. Jobs was the visionary, the seller, the dreamer. Together, they had something rare. Two completely different talents that fit perfectly. After high school, Steve enrolled in Reed College in Oregon. It was an expensive, unusual school. His parents used most of their savings to send him there. But Steve was not happy. He felt guilty for spending his parents' money. He didn't see the value of the required classes. He didn't want to follow a normal path. So, after only 6 months, he dropped out. However, he did something unusual. He didn't leave the campus completely. Instead, he stayed nearby. He slept on friends' floors. He returned bottles for spare coins. He walked 7 miles every Sunday to eat a free meal at a local temple. And here is the most interesting part. He started attending classes that interested him without paying, without grades, without pressure. One of those classes was about calligraphy, the art of beautiful handwriting. He learned about typefaces, about spacing between letters, about what makes typography beautiful. At that moment, it seemed useless. There was no practical reason to study calligraphy. But 10 years later, when he helped design the first Macintosh computer, this knowledge changed history. The Macintosh became the first personal computer with beautiful fonts. Because Steve cared, because Steve had learned. Many years later, in a famous speech, Steve told students something powerful. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you must trust that, somehow, the dots in your life will connect later. Trust your curiosity. Follow what excites you. The path may not make sense today, but it might make perfect sense one day. After leaving Reed, Steve faced a deep crisis. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know what to do with his life. So he made an unusual decision. He flew to India. He spent months traveling through small villages. He shaved his head. He wore simple clothes. He looked for spiritual masters. He hoped to find wisdom. He found something more complicated. India was beautiful, but also painful. He saw deep poverty. He saw confusion. He saw that many gurus were not real teachers. He saw that running away from your problems doesn't always solve them. When he returned to California, he was different, thinner, quieter, more serious. He brought back something important, a lifelong love for Zen Buddhism, the idea of simplicity, the belief that less is more. That clean design is better than complicated design. That focus is more powerful than scattered energy. These ideas became the foundation of everything Apple would later create. In 1976, Steve and Woz started a small company. They named it Apple Computer. Why Apple? There are several explanations. Some say Steve had recently visited an apple farm and liked the name. Some say he wanted his company to appear before Atari in the phone book. Whatever the reason, the name stuck. Their first product was called the Apple I. It was a simple circuit board. They built the first units in Steve's parents' garage. Steve sold the orders. Woz built the machines. They worked late into the night. A few months later, they released the Apple II. This was a real personal computer. It had a keyboard. It had color graphics. It could run programs. It was friendly. It was approachable. The Apple II became one of the most successful computers in history. It made both Steves millionaires before age 30. But success brought new problems. As Apple grew bigger, Steve grew more demanding. He had high standards. He shouted at engineers. He criticized designers. He could be harsh, rude, and sometimes cruel. Many people loved him. Many people feared him. Some people quit because of him. In 1985, after intense conflicts with the company's board of directors, something shocking happened. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he had created with his own hands, the company that bore the name he chose, the company that was his identity. He was forced to leave. He was only 30 years old. He later said it was the most devastating moment of his life. For weeks, he didn't know what to do. He felt lost. He felt embarrassed. He even thought about leaving the technology industry forever. But, slowly, an idea returned to him. He still loved what he did. Yes, he had been rejected. But the love hadn't disappeared. And so, instead of giving up, he started again. This time, he started 2 new companies. The first was called Next. It was a computer company focused on universities and research labs. Its computers were beautiful, advanced, and very expensive. Next struggled commercially for many years. The second was a small graphics company. It was experimenting with new types of animation. Steve bought it from a famous filmmaker, George Lucas. Most people thought it was a strange investment. The company's name was Pixar. At first, Pixar lost money year after year. Steve nearly went bankrupt several times, but he kept believing in the team. He kept funding the work. He kept patient. Then, in 1995, Pixar released a movie made entirely with computer animation. A movie about toys who come to life when children leave the room. It was called Toy Story. It changed everything. Toy Story was a massive success. Children loved it. Adults loved it. Critics praised it. Pixar became one of the most respected animation studios in the world. Steve Jobs, the man Hollywood had ignored, was now Hollywood's most surprising new player. This was Steve's first lesson in returning from failure. Sometimes, the door that closes feels like the end, but often, it forces you to find a new door you would never have looked for. In the late 1990s, something amazing happened. Apple was in deep trouble. The company had been struggling without Steve. Its products were boring. Its sales were dropping. Many experts believed Apple would not survive. So Apple did the unthinkable. They bought Next, Steve's company, and they brought Steve back. The man they had fired 12 years earlier was now returning to save them. Steve immediately got to work. He looked at Apple's product line. There were dozens of confusing products. Too many laptops. Too many desktops. Too many printers. He cut almost all of them. He told the team to focus on just 4 products. 2 for consumers, 2 for professionals, 2 laptops, 2 desktops. This decision shocked everyone, but it worked. In 1998, Apple released a new computer called the iMac. It was colorful. It was rounded. It was friendly. It looked nothing like the boring beige computers of the past. People fell in love with it. Apple became cool again. But Steve was just getting started. In 2001, Apple released a small device with a white wheel. It could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was called the iPod. The iPod changed the music industry forever. Suddenly, people didn't need to carry CDs anymore. They could carry their entire music collection in one tiny device. By 2010, Apple had sold over 200 million iPods. But Steve had even bigger dreams. On the 9th of January 2007, Steve walked onto a stage in San Francisco. He looked relaxed but excited. He told the audience he was going to introduce 3 new products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communicator. The audience was confused. 3 products? Then Steve repeated the words. Slowly, carefully, a widescreen iPod, a phone, an internet communicator. He paused, he smiled, and he said, "Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device, And we call it iPhone. The crowd exploded. The world had just seen its first iPhone. It is hard to explain how much the iPhone changed everything. Before the iPhone, phones had physical buttons. They had small screens. They could send text messages. They could not run real applications. They could not handle real internet. After the iPhone, the phone became a computer. The computer became a camera. The camera became a map. The map became a music player. Every business in the world had to rethink everything. The iPhone is now one of the most important inventions of the 21st century. Billions of people use it. Even people who use other brands today were influenced by the iPhone's design. In just over 30 years, the boy who grew up in a quiet garage became one of the most influential figures of modern times. But while Steve was changing the world, something private was happening inside his body. In 2003, doctors found a rare form of cancer in his pancreas. The pancreas is an important organ near the stomach. This kind of cancer was unusual. It grew slowly. Doctors believed it could be treated successfully if surgery was done quickly. But Steve made a choice that surprised his doctors. He refused surgery for 9 months. Instead, he tried alternative treatments, special diets, herbs, acupuncture. He believed natural methods would heal him. Looking back, he later regretted this delay. By the time he agreed to surgery, the cancer had grown harder to control. This part of Steve's story is important. It shows that even brilliant minds can make serious mistakes. It shows that we are all human, that fame and success do not protect anyone from fear, denial, or wishful thinking. For several years, Steve continued to lead Apple while battling his illness. He worked despite pain. He gave keynote speeches even while losing weight. He launched new products even when his body was failing. In 2005, he gave one of the most famous speeches of his life. He spoke to graduating students at Stanford University. He shared 3 stories from his life: about connecting the dots, about love and loss, about death. He told the students something deep. Remembering that you will die is the best way to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart, he told them. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. That speech has now been watched by hundreds of millions of people. It continues to inspire students all over the world. By 2011, Steve's health was getting worse. He stepped down as CEO of Apple. He said goodbye to the company he loved. On the 5th of October, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. He was 56 years old. The world mourned. People left flowers outside Apple stores. They wrote messages on his Twitter page. They shared his Stanford speech. They watched old videos of his presentations. They cried for a man most of them had never met. It was rare for one person to receive so much love from so many strangers around the globe. Now, let's pause for a moment. Let's think honestly about Steve. He was not a perfect human being. He could be incredibly rude. He yelled at employees. He made grown engineers cry. He sometimes refused to give credit to others. He could be cold to people he no longer found useful. He also had a complicated personal life. He denied being the father of his first daughter, Lisa, for many years. He later regretted this. He worked hard to repair the relationship, but the early years were painful for her. Some former colleagues say that working with Steve was the best and worst experience of their lives. He pushed people harder than anyone else, but he also brought out work they did not know they were capable of. This is the honest truth. Genius and difficulty often live in the same person. So what can we learn from Steve Jobs? Let me share 5 lessons. Lesson 1. Care deeply about quality. Even the parts no one sees. Even the details no one will notice. Quality is not a strategy. Quality is a character trait. Lesson 2. Follow your curiosity, even if it seems useless. The calligraphy class became the foundation of beautiful computer fonts. The trip to India became the foundation of Apple's love for simplicity. You don't know where your curiosity will lead. Trust it anyway. Lesson 3. Failure is not the end. It is sometimes the beginning. Steve was fired from his own company. Then, he built Pixar. Then, he came back and created the iPhone. If he had never been fired, none of this might have happened. Lesson 4. Focus is power. Steve cut most of Apple's products and focused on a few. He said, "Focusing is about saying no to good ideas, not just bad ones." Most people fail not because they have bad ideas, but because they try too many things. Lesson 5. Remember that life is short. Steve thought about death every morning. He asked himself, if today were my last day, would I want to be doing what I am about to do? If the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew it was time to change something. Now, before we end our story, let me say one more thing. The most powerful lesson from Steve Jobs is not about computers. It is not about phones. It is not about animation studios or business strategies. The most powerful lesson is this: you are allowed to be different. Steve was different from the moment he was born. Adopted, restless, rebellious, searching. He didn't fit normal categories. He didn't accept normal answers. He didn't follow normal paths. And because of that, he gave the world something the world had never seen before. Maybe you are also different. Maybe you don't fit the expectations of your family. Maybe people in your country tell you to take the safe road. Maybe teachers tell you to be quiet. Maybe society tells you to dream smaller. Steve's story reminds us that the world needs people who are willing to be different. You don't have to be Steve Jobs. You don't have to build $1 billion company. You don't have to invent the next iPhone, but you can build your own version of meaningful work. You can pursue what excites you. You can refuse to live someone else's idea of success. Quietly, patiently, one day at a time. And by doing that, you honor not only Steve's legacy, you honor your own life. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for practicing your English with patience. Thank you for opening your mind to a complicated, human, fascinating story. If this video helped you, please listen again. Each time, you will catch new details. Each time, your ears will grow stronger. Each time, English will feel more natural inside you. Language learning is just like Steve's life. You connect the dots, looking backward, not forward. You may not feel progress today, but trust the process. Show up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Small daily efforts create extraordinary results. I'll see you in the next story. Take care, stay curious, and keep learning.